All right, we're bringing another tip for you on tips to have not just better behavior in school, but to deal with the behavioral challenges that we face all the time. And there are a lot, but you can deal with them in a very positive way. This time, I have sensory toys that we're going to talk about today. So, pretty cool stuff. And autism teacher, special education teacher, amazing person extraordinaire, Miss Laura Riva.
Hi, everyone.
Yeah, so she is absolutely amazing, and we're going to talk about the goals, maybe the different types of sensory toys, and just some things to think about, maybe. Right? Mm-hmm. You have a lot of students that use these.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And is there one that they prefer more than others?
So my students really enjoy these.
Okay.
When you squeeze them, it has these balls that come out. We have to be sensitive to when we give it to them, because sometimes if they're really frustrated or upset, may not be the best time. We don't want them to break. But we use them proactively, which is awesome.
Well, and you gotta be careful. I did see a video, y'all, that this, if you squeeze too much, it does all these little things inside kind of blow up everywhere. So you have to gently make sure that you use this toy, right? So that's one. And that's probably what has a net on it too. Yeah. Okay, that's good. Okay, and what are some other things we use?
So we have these timers, which are really awesome. Our students love this. It gives them a visual for how much time that they have, whether they're using it to calm down or as a distractor. So they love to use those.
All right. And there's different kinds of timers. Like this is... So what's the difference in this one? A little bubbly? It's still a timer? Or?
Yeah. Yep, it's still a timer. And you can buy timers that are like 2 minutes long or some that are 1 minute. It just depends. So they should have descriptions when you buy them.
So the nice benefit of the sensory, because of the sights and the colors, and I can just stare at this now. It's been a long week, so I could just stare. So we should like keep it somewhere where I can just do that.
Yes.
Okay, so, and that's something as we go through this is, we got to think about the goals of these things are. What do you think goals are typically for these sensory tools, I guess? What do you think?
So some of our kids, when they come in, they have, you can tell whether they're frustrated or upset, or maybe they're coming in and they're having an off day. Okay. We like to use these proactively. So if we see a student coming in and it's been a rough morning, sometimes using some of these, this is like a good brain break where you have to connect the ring to the color. So I would move this orange ball over to the orange circle, and it's a good distractor for them, so it gets their mind off of whatever it is that they were thinking of, and it helps them to get back on track. So we use them for that, and sometimes kids who have a lot of energy and they're seeking sensory things, whether they're like putting things in their mouth or trying to touch a lot of things. Sometimes our kids, when they walk down the halls, they want to touch a lot of the things on the walls. Giving them these things proactively can often fulfill that sensory need for them. So they're great for those as well. Right.
And so there's like a couple different types of just even those. What you're saying is one is just like the stress stuff that people typically see is just sort of a sensory texture kind of thing sometimes, or muscle piece too, because it's working their hands and all that.
Yep.
Then there's the kind of like this you were talking about. We have another one that's like a mat, like remember that gel mat that we have where you can like, you push this marble through the maze of a gel mat, and so it's a little bit hard to press that marble, so it forces kids to use their, I guess, muscles and concentration for that, get their mind off something else, which is really good. So there's a lot of those, and then you have like, we don't have it here, but you have like fidget spinners, which I'm gonna do a whole nother episode on fidget spinners. I try to wrap my head around fidget spinners. That's not my thing, but I'll get to that. That's a whole nother sort of attention occupying kind of thing, right?
And sometimes kids, whenever they're in class, we have some other things like this that are very discreet. And so if they're always doing things with their hands during class, this is something that they can hold and they can use. And the other students may not notice it, but it keeps them from fidgeting their hands with other things.
Yeah, like you had some of these things, and these seem like just regular toys, and basically a lot of them are just regular toys, but there's a little bit of difference, excuse me, because at least the difference, I guess, would be that it's getting them to do something that would be either sensory or occupying their concentration, right? We do have a hard time sometimes on when kids can have access to this, and kids need to know how to use these things appropriately. You can't just give it to them and all of a sudden everything's better, especially like some of those wiggle seats and things like that. You have to teach them when to use it, right? It's not going to be a challenge, right? Different things are, even they have this little bag of, like pillows. And in our sensory room, we have the big pillows like this, but these are like little handheld ones. The reason these are nice is because depending on the texture, a lot of our kids really are sensitive to the actual fibers or the hair, whatever you want to call it, on the stuffy kind of things. I know, like for my son, the pillow pets with the long hair pillow pets, you put them on their face sometimes or their hands, and even a lot of kids with sensory issues are on their nose. Their noses are very sensitive, and they like to touch it that way too. So these are nice because you can actually have these like in your pocket. So a lot of different kinds. So that's neat. And then there's even kinds that are not soft per se, but just a different texture altogether. We have these big ones in the sensory room too, right? What else? Something like this occupies your time. It looks like one of those finger trap things, but it's closed on both ends, and it just has a marble inside of it, right? What else we got?
We have a Slinky. Not something that you would want your kid to have in class or during instruction.
How is that? How do you let that happen?
This is in our sensory room that we have here at Ashland, so sometimes kids go in there. Mostly we use it proactively, but they say that exposing kids to some of these sensory items can really help them attend and focus. So even something like this that's visually...
I don't know about you, but I always screwed that up and it got all warped, and you can never unwarp it after that. Like it's like a trick. So that one, use it caution. Although the what do you call it, the sense of the whole thing back and forth and the colors, because that's something to talk about is one, the different sensations, right? So it's about sensory. There's different senses. There's sight, sound, touch, feel, all that kind of stuff. So some of these things are the texture we talked about. Some of it's the colors. There's a lot of things with just straight lights. You see sometimes kids actually stare into lights, and we always say that's terrible for your eyes and all that, but they're doing it for a reason because it's a certain need that they have, right? A lot of students have with their mouth, they have like chewies and some stuff that they need sometimes because they have sensory issues with their mouth. And hearing is a big one too. We talked about a little bit about that last week with the headphones, sensitivity to noise, which I think we do a whole episode about that too, because a lot of times the noise causes anxiety, which is a whole other thing too. So what else we got over there?
We have these. In our sensory room, we have big ones and we have small ones of these, but they're just rubber and they have different textures and designs on them. And so this is also something that can be really discreet, but we have this in our sensory space as well. So we have a couple of them.
We have a bunch of these that are small and large versions of most same things. Kind of neat because if you put them in your pocket or something for a lot of our kids. So it's good about that. We even have another thing to think about with sensory is, like weighted things, because another piece of sensory is pressure. And there's a whole thing you can look about pressure. There's the sock things that you can jump in, but there's also the weighted blankets, weighted stuffed animals. This is just literally like a really heavy weighted blanket, and they come in different weights. And then there's the actual like soft weighted blanket, which is really nice too. The nice thing about that is it puts pressure on the legs. So if you have a kid that have a hard time sitting still, we'll put a like a baby like boppy kind of thing backwards, and that's not necessarily weighted, but it also puts something pressure on their legs or something weighted like this. And it doesn't hold them down. It's not strapped onto them or anything, but it just creates that kind of pressure, right? And then we even got this the other day. This is just more of a fun thing that we wanted to do, and Hey, what do you think the kids did right away? What did they do right away? They did this. Let's see it. Let's see it.
Your turn.
All right, my turn.
Nice.
That's like, I don't know, that's like a scary something or other right there. I'll leave that guy right there. How about that? So, but kids love this right away.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, I think one of our kids on the first day they got this, which is funny you just did this, is they took their shoes and socks off and they put their feet right on this thing because they had their feet. So now we are toast. But so that's just some examples. I mean, there's so much stuff out there that you could use. There's stretchy things you could do. There's larger things you can do. But the idea is that it's satisfying some type of need that they have, with squishy or lights, or there's some weight to it. There's texture. There's chewy, fidgety. they're either blocking out stimuli or they're adding more stimuli, right? So what's maybe one final thought, if someone wants to learn more about this or try these things, especially maybe your classroom teacher, do I allow my students to use this in class? Maybe it'll be distracting for the rest of the class.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I would say use them in absence of any negative behavior and just use it to expose them to it. And then you'll begin to see like, oh, wow, they're really interested in these things, kind of get a feel for what their go-tos are so that in the moment that you wanted to use it proactively, or if a student's having a lot of trouble focusing, that you can say, oh, here, why don't you try this? You know that that's one of the things that they're really interested in. So I would just have your students exposed to them. Some of them have never seen them before. I have a lot of students who come to my class for these types of things, both general education and special education. So
right, good note. This isn't just for students with disabilities. No. There's a lot of students that have sensory issues. A lot of people, a lot of adults do out there. And if you look around, you'll see that because people do things all the time that are sort of sensory related, you know.
Or anxiety. I know some students who have a lot of anxiety that they'll want to have these things. And sometimes when you don't have these things available, I'll often have my students like practice squeezing your hands and like do 10 squeezes, or we'll do like sticky hands where you stick your hands together for 10 seconds and you slowly bring them apart. So there's some other strategies that
another strategy I was thinking about that we see a lot is students wear certain types of clothing based on sensory. Maybe they avoid certain types of clothing too. You know, they avoid certain types of materials, but they also choose certain types of materials. So like those fuzzy jackets now, especially this time of year. So if you see a student that won't take their jacket off or that won't take a certain sweatshirt off, sometimes it's because it's just their favorite jacket, but sometimes because it's a sensory feeling that really comforts them. So be careful how much you force that kind of change if it's something they need. And then that's my final thought, is that these are all theoretically are based on need, right? There's some need that is satisfying for the kids. So if they don't use it, then it's probably because they don't have that need, and you'll just try different things until you find that, right? And not everybody needs this, but don't be afraid to try these different things, right?
Yeah,
what do you think? What's your go-to? You said
these. I have these in my desk.
I think this one's gonna be my go-to. I like this. This is just like the and there's a bunch of different kinds like this.
Yeah.
That's just cool right there. Yeah. Oh, you have another one. See, look at this. At Ashland, we just try to get everything we can for our kids. We run around and try to find them. All right, what do we got?
This one.
Oh, that's cool.
It has like a duck at the top. My kids love these ones. They have some with like ladybugs, so that's a cool one.
That's awesome. Our kids are lucky. All right. So if you have any questions, leave comments below. Leave comments below if you have other ideas, or we said something wrong, or you have more different toys or tips or whatever else, because we're trying to learn as well. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.